best thing you can ever do for yourself is to choose your parents well. I got passed the baton in with my baby bottle. My mother, Phyllis Schlafly, has had a political career of 70 years, including attending 20 Republican national conventions. She learned the art of politics through trench warfare. And the problems of today can seem daunting, but we can learn lessons from our elders, pass that baton. Here are the insights I learned from her life and politics and how we can apply them to today. It is never about the last election, it's always about the next election. Win or lose, the day after an election is the time to evaluate your next move. And the same theory holds true for votes in state legislature. Once the votes are cast, organize for the next issue and the next vote, even if that is repealing the last vote. Be sure to always thank people. After a vote is taken, most people move on to the next issue. Win or lose, thank all the people who are on your side. You want their support in the next vote, and honey catches more flies than vinegar. 1964 was a blowout loss for conservatives, which depressed many of us. But the lessons learned in that election were what made other victories possible. Learn from each vote and election to prepare for the next one. Conservatives lost in 2008 and 2012, but we won in 2010 and 2014. So we must get ready now for 2016 so it can be a winning year for conservatives, because we really have to win 2 elections in a row to have any effect in governing. Many Republicans were caught by surprise when we lost in 2012, but we lost because we just did not get out our ground game and excite the voters. And we can learn from that loss so that next year is a winning year. A ballot does not contain an explain your vote section. People will vote for you for a variety of reasons. Accept their support. Don't criticize their reasons. In other words, build a coalition based on principles. Not everyone will support you on every issue. Make alliances on your important issues and not a total platform. People rate their issues differently from you, so you work with anyone who will agree with you sometimes. Unfortunately, we do not have Jesus Christ on the ballot. No candidate is perfect, but somebody will be elected, and that somebody will be a Democrat or a Republican. So we must participate in our 2-party process. Yes, there are plenty of people who will never agree with us on any issue. They work in the news media and in popular culture. Ignore them. The media may talk a great deal and try to intimidate you into thinking that you represent a minority viewpoint, but they are not worth your time. Or, as my mother likes to say, I'm not going to let those slobs ruin my day. Spend your valuable time talking to people who are persuadable, not to people who oppose you. In the current political climate, the media is obsessed with getting conservatives to apologize for our beliefs. Their goal is to weaken our leaders. Never apologize for speaking on conservative principles, but stand up and don't be bullied for your core beliefs. Another lesson I learned from my mother is don't hold grudges. The art of politics is friendliness across the spectrum, and we need to have thick hides. Politics is a contact sport. If you tend to hold grudges, get out of politics. Your opponent in one vote may be your best ally in another vote. Stay polite and relish spirited debates. My mother's Democratic U.S. Senator never fails to wish her happy birthday every year. Stay in continual and polite conversations with everyone involved, because Everything you say or do is on the record. Never say or telephone or write or email or text or Facebook anything you do not want to see on the front page of the New York Times. I mean, this may seem self-evident, but it's amazing how many people get caught up with it. None of us has the secret private server that Hillary Clinton had that enabled her to so easily delete her illegal emails. Assume that all your communications have been recorded. We must frame the debate in order to win the debate. And I consider this advice to be really crucial. Don't be suckered into the language that the opposition uses, but choose words that communicate your side of an issue, such as pro-life instead of choice, since after all, the baby has no choice, or death tax instead of estate tax, since you may have an estate, but you only pay the tax at death. Recently, I've heard conservatives use the phrase crony capitalism. I object. There is nothing capitalistic about cronyism. Cronyism is the elite playing favors, which is the heart of communism and socialism, and the Clinton way of doing business. Don't sully a good word like capitalism. Another example, which Reverend Cruz mentioned, is social justice. And why? Who could be opposed to social justice? Except the phrase is a misnomer. It is really, and is what we should call it, socialist justice, because they want to spend my money on their projects. We must argue our positions using our phrases and not the language of the left. Recently, the chant has been marriage equality, which makes me laugh, because if you're married, you know there's no such thing as equality. 50-50 marriages are the ones that fail. We need a new phrase for traditional marriage. I want successful marriages. We need marriage preservation. Let us reclaim the true meaning of marriage, that is a lifetime commitment and not a passing love affair. Any child who is deprived of having a mother and a father married to each other in the same home is a disadvantaged child. So let's get back to the point of marriage, which is to educate and raise the next generation. Another phrase the left likes to use is income inequality. Well, there's a simple way to solve income inequality: marriage. Get married and stay married. Marriage inequality leads directly to income inequality. More than 40% of all U.S. births today are without the benefit of marriage. And marriage is the most important benefit children can possibly have in their lives. We must reclaim the value of marriage that is a lifetime commitment between a man and a woman, so that we can solve so many social ills, including poverty, education, and crime. We want our next generation to have productive lives and to be makers and not takers. Because conservatives have allowed themselves to be ridiculed in the popular culture, we have been fooled into thinking we are in the minority. We are not. But I find so many are afraid to state their positions because they might be accused of being intolerant. And the left do love to call us names: bigot, racist, homophobe, hater, and denier are the most common slurs now. I come from the land of Ferguson, Missouri, and I have seen firsthand how the use of a false narrative coupled with name-calling managed to silence law-abiding citizens and keep them cowed in their houses. We should not allow ourselves to be bullied by a screechy minority on the left. Now, not everyone can or should confront the obnoxious name-callers. Reinforce yourself by talking to those who see the right way, and talk to people you can persuade. Don't waste time talking to those who are committed leftists. Talk to the silent majority. I can always spot them. Those who disagree with me love to loudly tell me in front of a large crowd how much they disagree with me. Then afterwards, in a whisper, someone else will sidle up to me and say, in a very low voice, "I agree with you. Thank you so much for speaking out. Keep up the good work." Well, of course I want to respond, well, then stand up and be heard. At the very least, these are the people, the ones we must motivate to get out, to get involved, and to vote in every single election. Another lesson I learned from my mother is to smile, smile, and smile again. Be happy and optimistic. Your supporters need encouragement, and your opponents are driven crazy by your joy. One of the reasons our current president won in 2008 was his campaign slogan, "Yes, we can." Of course, his campaign slogan did not complete the line. Can do what? Destroy our system of government? The American people do want positive leadership. Stay positive and provide solutions. Accentuate the positive. The next lesson is distill your message to 60 seconds. Endlessly repeating the same message is very effective. When the media asks you questions on other topics, always answer with the message you want to send. One of my favorite quotes from my mother is, "Politicians usually have more votes before they speak than afterwards." It is easier to like a candidate before you find out you do not agree with him on every single issue. Get prepared, learn the issues that your particular audience is interested in, and be ready to answer questions in a way that won't lose their support. Or help your candidate to learn the issues and prepare short answers. Emphasis on the word short. Plus, short speeches are much more effective than long speeches. It is so important to distill your message to 1 minute and then repeat as needed. Choose your battles. There are lots and lots of bad things going on in the world, but not every battle is winnable. Choose battles that can be won, because winning is more fun than losing. Yes, you will lose battles, but they can become Pyrrhic victories for your opponents. Goldwater's loss in 1964 led directly to Reagan's victory in 1980 because conservatives spent 16 years building their grassroots. The last 8 years have been horrific as the left has repeatedly undermined our Constitution. Let us turn it into a victory. We do have the ability to win in 2016, but only if we motivate the voters. There is also a time when accentuating the negative is important. The easiest way to defeat bad legislation is to enumerate how people will be personally and negatively affected by the proposed new law. In our current government, negatively affected by the negative is so easy. Obamacare, Common Core, amnesty, weak foreign policy that surrenders to our enemies, unemployment, and underemployment. Yes, we can do better with true conservative leadership. Another point is to focus on the states. Most politicians are eager to get to the national spotlight as quickly as possible, but more action happens in the state legislatures. You can more easily pass good bills and defeat bad bills in the individual states. You can have more influence because you are paying attention when others are wooed by national news. And you can groom the next generation of politicians who will remain forever indebted to you because you knew them win. Can California be turned around? If you don't think so, move. But if you think so, work. Other states have done it. California voted Republican in 1988. In the Midwest, we have the parallel examples of Minnesota and Wisconsin, both Democratic states for multiple generations, including the 1980s. But in the last 4 years, Wisconsin voters have made a right turn that has changed the whole landscape for that state. Minnesota has lagged behind as it stays firmly Democratic. Side by side, everyone can see the differences between those two state governments. Wisconsin is thriving. Is it possible for voters to do the right thing? If they're motivated. And how do we motivate the people? Shame the vote. Only half of eligible voters vote, and I don't want everyone to vote. I only want the people to vote who vote the way I want them to vote. And the best way to motivate people is to pester them to vote. They know they should vote, like they know they should floss their teeth. Don't waste time talking to moderates or liberals about voting. Concentrate instead on identifying who your people are and then motivating your people to vote. Conservatives are a majority in the US, but we have been cowed by pop culture to keep our mouths shut. But even with our mouths shut, we can still vote. And one of my favorite Phyllis Schlafly quotes, which I think she said on the video, is, "God does not stuff the ballot box, it's up to us to get out the vote." Most elections are decided by a very small fraction of the population. And after every election, I find people who pretend and lie that they did vote. The voter rolls tell the truth. Getting out the vote, known as GoTV, means pestering people to vote. And I do mean pester. We shame the vote, as I call it. We won't win unless each one of you makes sure that every single person who agrees with you actually votes. Do what you have to do to motivate them. Shaming is the most effective technique. In conclusion, I'm going to distill my message to 60 seconds. To stop the madness of the Obama agenda, we must elect conservative Republicans in 2016. Ignore the media noise. You need to persuade your muddy middle friends to join our cause for strong families, real education, economic opportunity, lower taxes, reining in oppressive bureaucracy, secure borders, and a superior national defense against anyone who would harm our great country. Thank you very much.